Hi, I'm James Brookes, and welcome to From the Factory Floor, a conversational podcast about all things startup and tech, brought to you by the folks at Thestartupfactory.tech. And welcome back to another episode of From the Factory Floor. As ever, I'm your host. Well, I say as ever. I've missed a couple of weeks. So I'm James, your host, and joined, I think, is my,
co-host?
I think official co-host these
days.
Can
I have a promotion?
I think you can. Nairi, and today we're very kindly joined by Emma. Hi, Emma.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And you people?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, for once the sun's shining in Manchester, so I don't think we can complain too much.
That could all change very quickly.
Yeah.
Not far too quickly. So obviously today we really want to talk to you, Emma, about sort of your journey, what it is you're doing, and a little about your startup in-house health. So I guess it works to start for 10. So what is in-house health? How did you come up with the idea, Emma?
So if I was to do my lovely elevator pitch, in-house health, so we implement data-informed workplace health and wellbeing solutions, and we predominantly work with digital tech companies, enabling them to make a measurable impact on their people, performance and profits. So in English, what that means is we help digital tech businesses get to the root cause of issues when it comes to well-being, rather than a lot of the fluffy shite that they tend to be doing.
I'm glad you dropped the first swear word in the podcast.
Yeah, well, you know, although I'm an adopted Mancunian, you can take the girl out of Glasgow, but you can't take Glasgow out of the girl, sadly. But yeah, so in-house health kind of came about. So I'm a nurse by trade. I've been a nurse for 21 years this year, and most of my nursing career was spent in general practice. I was responsible for running chronic disease management clinics, public health promotion, and public health screening. And I suppose you could say I was burnt out, but not in the traditional sense. I was burnt out emotionally. There was a huge disconnect of why I wanted to be a nurse and the outcomes that I could achieve for my patients and what was happening in reality. I was seeing people when it was far too late. So I was seeing patients when they'd already had a heart attack, a stroke, a mental health breakdown, cancer diagnosis, printing them off a 10-year-old diet sheet and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, Dave, that this is, this crisis has happened. Off you go, and now change your life." So it was that kind of reactive thing. So in 2016, I made the decision to leave the NHS. Too much red tape and bureaucracy, and I've done various other things. But then in 2018, 2019, I started to look at corporate well-being. I do have some occupational health experience, slightly different from the world of workplace well-being. And what I found was that same stick and plaster approach. So well-being initiatives that are reactive, they're fluffy, and they're not measured in any way by the businesses that are investing money in them. They're having no long-term impact on health and certainly no financial benefit to the business. And I was like, I know I can solve all those problems with no kind of corporate or commercial experience myself, kind of finding my feet in this new world outside the NHS. And then COVID happened and I was like, oh shit, like what can I do now? And then, we all remember those, daily press conferences, and health data then was shaping up, how we could live our lives, whether we could leave our front door, whether we could see our friends and family, whether we could go to the gym or exercise, work from home, go back into the office. It really impacted our lives. And then when I looked at that, the workplace wellbeing piece, it was the same. Like, businesses use data for all areas of their business, but when it comes to that health and well-being, the people piece, it's the piece that's missing, and it really needs to be focused as a strategic arm of business. And that's kind of how in-house health has evolved into, a well-tech startup, whatever label you want to give it. But that's kind of what we are now, in using that data information to get to the root cause of problems and help business leaders to not just help their people, but to improve their ability to innovate and grow, and ultimately their bottom line profits.
It's amazing. I think each year you see stats come out of how many, billions are lost by, people being ill or workplace anxiety. So having something like this with someone like yourself with your background, obviously it makes complete sense why it's using this data-based approach is a really good thing to have for your for your clients to actually try and understand why this is going on. So it's a really good idea, and I'm really happy that something like this exists.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of who's your ideal client, Emma? Because obviously, like, I suppose when you started out, you probably could have gone for any big organisation where there's a large employer base, but I think you've probably narrowed it down a little bit now. So could you tell us a bit more about who your ideal client is and from a founder point of view, how you arrived at that decision as well?
Yeah, so our ideal clients are digital tech organizations, and my hypothesis at the minute is that it is an SME product. When you start looking at enterprise businesses, they have their own learning and development teams, their own kind of structures around well-being. They've got the resources and knowledge base to be able to do that. However, I have just signed up a large client, a department within a large organization, and I've got a proposal out with another one. So that hypotheses might be proved wrong in terms of being able to collect the data. But the reason I kind of arrived at the digital tech sector was an early pilot program, which led me into a marketing agency. And this agency is what I would class as a good business in terms of looking after their people. And it amazed me, first of all. So I've gone into this shiny building and rooftop terrace and beer in the fridge and lovely breakout rooms, and I'm used to my sink hanging off the wall and the curtains falling down in my like crummy little NHS office clinical room. And I was like, wow, this is amazing, like look at this, what an environment to work in. And then I started seeing employee after employee. So we collect our health data through face-to-face employee health checks. First of all, it's a benefit in itself that each individual has the space and time to speak to a clinical professional. But also it's the best way to get accurate data from people. If you put garbage in, you get garbage out when it comes to data. So, surveys are good touch points in between, but actually we collect accurate data from individuals. So I was seeing these people come through their health checks, and there was a huge disconnect between what was what this environment was showing me and what I kind of my perceptions of the tech sector and what actually people were divulging around work related stress and ill health. And then I'd done more research, and then I found that actually the dark sector is not a pretty place to work. It has a real dark side. So I thought, well, what a great kind of sector to get involved with and focus on there. If we look at the wider economy and the innovation strategy that's in place from the government and things, if we want to be the leader for emerging technologies and to continue on that trajectory, how can that be possible if we don't look after the people that are in that industry? Stress hijacks the brain. If we want people to be creative and innovative, then they need to be well and healthy and engaged enough to be able to come up with all these really good ideas at a micro level for their business, but a much wider level for the UK economy as a whole.
It reminds me a bit. It's a bit Emperor's New Clothes, isn't it? These organisations that have this shiny, like you say, amazing office, and they offer all these like amazing perks, and then you often can scratch onto the surface, and they're really, really difficult, damaging places to work. And it seems like very much your approach is around getting the basics right, which is great. So obviously, like, you can identify some of the trends there, burnout organisations, etc. What's the next step in terms of working with in-house health? How would you then work with the organisation to tackle that?
So we have developed 3 products. So before that, we have a free wellbeing meta action plan, so anyone can go onto it, shameless plug, inhousehealth.co.uk, and find the wellbeing map. So that's a free tool that you can embed into your organisation to have open well-being conversations and one-to-one performance reviews, for example, between team leads and the people that they manage. But when it comes to the first kind of product that we've developed, it's the meta well-being audit. So might have noticed that I've said meta a few things. So meta, thanks to Zuckerberg for ruining it, but it is trademark. So meta is the framework that I developed. So around everything we do, which is measure, evaluate, transform, and analyze. It's the 4-step process that we base everything on. So the meta well-being audit is really the first thing that businesses should be doing when we work with them, and it is basically benchmarking and assessing the operational frameworks around health and well-being. So what I see in the well-being sector is most well-being is focused on individuals, on employees, as if they're the problem. But when we're talking about work-related ill health, the problem is the organization. The problem is the barriers to effectively embedding good health and well-being in that culture, which then comes down to the leadership team. So that's why the audit was developed. It's looking at kind of those frameworks that are in place for business around strategy, around policy, around their culture. And also most businesses say, hey, well, we do well-being. Why do we need your stuff? Okay, that's great, but how are you planning, implementing, and most importantly, what results are you getting from your current well-being? Most businesses don't know because they're not measuring it. But taking that a step further, we're not just looking at the health of the people, we're looking at the health of the business. So can you take what you're doing from a well-being point of view and directly link it to your business outcomes? How is that impacting your project delivery time? How is that impacting your client retention rates? How is that impacting on your sales team and your marketing, and at the end of the day, your bottom line profits? And most people don't directly link one with the other, and I think that's the piece that's missing around a well-being. It's giving businesses the tangible results so that they have that demonstrable evidence that they can see that it is impacting it. It's been too woolly, too fluffy for too long, and it's just seen as this little nice to have. But actually, not only has kind of well-being evolved, the next generations that we're seeing coming through the workforce, they've evolved as well, and they are choosing employers that genuinely want to look after them and care for them. So when we go back to tech and getting tech talent, to well-being has to be part of your strategy and looking after people properly if you want to not just attract talent but actually keep them in your business as well.
And we all know, sort of with technology at the moment and building tech teams, how hard it is to acquire people. So the more you have to then actually acquire more people to replace those that are leaving, looking after the people that are there is so important. So what are there any like sort of typical things you've seen with tech teams that are the common trends that are, leading to this sort of mismatch in their well-being, where they're starting to look at other businesses to move to?
So if I just data's my thing, so it wouldn't be right if I didn't give you some statistics around what's happening. So if you work in tech in the UK, you're 5 times more likely to be depressed than the national average. Very, very frightening stat. 48% of the tech workforce is at very high risk of burnout, and that's even higher in underrepresented population, so women and people from diverse backgrounds. I think there was another stat, like 28% of the tech workforce have been formally diagnosed with a mental ill health condition caused by stress at work. So not just from external factors, but due to work. So, if we just look at those statistics, you can already see how that would impact businesses. But I suppose if you're looking at behaviours, then you are looking at people that are disengaged from teams. They might have dropped out of socials and things like that. Their work might become sloppy. They might not be delivering high quality work that they were in the past. And I think when I go back to kind of what current initiatives, how they address well-being, like the yoga and the fruit and the bean bags and the slides that these shiny tech businesses put in place. Fundamentally, where the problems start from is workload. So when we look at startups and scaling businesses, what tends to happen is, first of all, culture is, a group of 10 people, and some guy's like a really innovative, good developer, and then he gets his mates in, and everyone looks the same and thinks the same, and then, they get investment in and they start growing. But then they've got a really small team doing a high volume of work. And what happens is people leave it too long before they hire people into the business. So people have a very, very high workload for a too long period of time. Don't get me wrong, like stress, a little bit of stress is good. We all need stress to keep that high performance. But we're not designed to maintain that for long periods of time, and that's kind of when the cracks start appearing. But then also making sure that people in your business have the right skills and knowledge to do their job, what you're asking for them to do. When you are a smallish team, you're kind of like, oh, can you just do this? Can you just do that? When people are kind of winging it and making it up as they go along, again, that's okay. But when it's all the time, as humans, we are not designed for that type of pressure. So all the problems I see are the business problems. So workload, not having the right skills to do your job. Relationships is really important. Control. So do people have autonomy to do what they are? There's lots of micromanagement that goes on. And then communication, that really falls around. And I think when businesses get those things right, everything else kind of looks after itself. But that's kind of the bit that's missing. Yeah. So businesses are like, yay, like we'll get, this guru in and this will solve all our problems. No, it's not. As a board, as a leadership team, you have to do the hard work here to improve those frameworks around good work and what good work looks like for your people.
So you tell us anything about like a real success story for yourself and sort of how a business has gone from, a team where potentially have got issues through to, well-being has improved, and how that's then affected the business going forward?
Yeah, so obviously we're an early stage company, and it takes, this is the thing that actually good well-being is not a quick fix. It's not a tick box exercise. So we are looking at long term, like small incremental improvements over the long term. But already, so some companies that have been early adopters through our next product is our leadership program, a 3-month program for leaders, and then we've got a 12-month program for employees. So our reports will show an organization like 10% of your workforce have got high blood pressure, 40% have got severe anxiety, 20% have got increased alcohol dependence. These are the risks, these are the recommendations, and then we provide training and education in those key problem areas for that business or a department within a business, so that it's bespoke to the needs of that workforce rather than something that's off the shelf for any random business or group of people. So already with that kind of, first of all, from the health checks, so for example, in one of the health checks, I found this guy that had dangerously high blood pressure. I was like, if you were in my clinic right now, I would be medicating you. So it's quite bad. I'm not suggesting that you go to A&E, but you need to go and see your GP. So he went to his GP, and he got in touch with me like about 6 weeks later and had said that off the back of that, his GP had sent him for further investigations, and he already had heart damage from high blood pressure, which he had, like, high blood pressure is like known as the silent killer, because there's like 5 million people walking around with high blood pressure, not realizing that it is impacting on their long-term health. So if he hadn't have gone to his GP at that point in time and had medical intervention, within the next 6 months, there is no doubt about it, he would have had a heart attack or a stroke. So not only has that drastically reduced his risk and improved his outcomes, he's not having any time off work. Someone has a heart attack these days, like, most people don't die. I think it used to be like for every 10 people that had a heart attack, 6 would die and 4 would live. But now the outcomes are much better. So it's something like 3 will die and 7 will live. So when that is someone in your organization, they will be coming back to work, but how long is their recovery going to take? As an employer, that is costing you money. That is putting workload onto other people in the team. You might have to get, some freelancers in. So financially, the money saving on that one person from preventing that crisis from happening is a benefit in itself. So that's just like a short-term thing that we've seen. The long-term data is not there yet, but I imagine the prevention piece is going to be huge, and that's kind of why I developed in-house health.
Even without looking at the stats and thinking about it commercially, it just feels like the right thing to do, doesn't it, for organisations to, if they've got the opportunity to put that mechanism in place to catch and genuinely look after their employees, why wouldn't you do that? Like, if you're going to go to the effort of, painting the walls a mad colour, like say the cost of sticking a slide into an office, why wouldn't you then go to the effort of having somebody in the business that, generally is looking at, in a safe environment, people's health metrics? Just finally, Emma, obviously, like, you're really, really knowledgeable and clued up and wise around boundaries and burnout. And then you're a non-tech founder developing a tech product, and I think probably go to more events and things like that, and more ingrained into the kind of Manchester ecosystem than probably anybody else I know.
Even more than Alexa.
Even more than Alexa.
I do see him around a lot.
Yeah.
He's hard to miss, to be
fair. Alter egos. But I just wondered, like, how do you manage the boundaries and your founder journey and being very aware of burnout? Because it is difficult being a founder, solo founder, and non-tech. I just wondered if you could give us a bit of an update on how you found that, really.
Well, I'm not going to lie, it's a challenge, and I would be wrong to say that, I try and practice what I preach, but it's difficult. And actually, that's something that I'm not doing with businesses. Like, I'm not going into a business and I'm not saying to a business that, all your staff need to be working 4 hours a day, 3 days a week. Like, this is terrible for them. Like, I'm a realist. And being a founder, you have to be real. And it requires a lot of resilience to keep going. And the time pressures, I've got 2 teenage daughters as well. So, being a mom and, I've got my own health conditions and, so all those things play their part. So for me, I don't, and even like with general well-being, like well-being is not something that you do, it's an outcome of what you do. So for me, there's no one size fits all, and understanding what works well for you as a founder or as a business leader or as an individual is really important. And being able to listen, it's something we forgot, is like listening to our own bodies and what it's telling us. If you're getting headaches, if you're getting backaches, do something about it. And it's something simple as drinking more water or readjusting your chair when you get, every time you're sitting back at your desk. But in terms of time, I mean, I think it's just being kind to yourself and not having any guilt that when you do switch, like, you never fully switch off. When it's your own business, you never switch off. Your brain is always going. Like at Christmas, I was like, right, I'm taking a full week off work. I'm not doing anything. So finished Christmas Eve, and it got to Boxing Day, and I like sat at the dining table and put my laptop on, and my husband was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm bored." Like, I've watched Die Hard and Home Alone and all these things, and played games and whatever, but my mind was like, just doesn't let me switch off. So I think it's like in those moments, it's kind of going back to the old fashioned, like pen and paper and just writing things down and going back to it. So I think in terms of boundaries, I don't think there are specific boundaries. It is really just about understanding kind of how your work is impacting you as an individual, and doing what you can do to minimize that negative effect. And it goes back to three main things. So exercise, good nutrition, and good sleep. And those three things are the foundation of all good health and well-being, but they're the first things that go out the window. You're busy, so you eat loads of crap and junk food. You know, you go networking for your tea and it's pizza.
Yeah.
You know, it's so high, you know, please eat the veggie supreme that's got 2 of your 5 a day on it. You know, it's like, that's like the extremes of what you go into. You know, you're working long hours, you're asleep at night. I could, you know, do a whole podcast on things that you can actually do and implement, but at the end of the day, it's what suits an individual. Don't feel guilty about taking some time away, and make sure that you're looking after yourself as well as you can.
Wow.
I think that it's great advice, and I think, like you say, there's 3 basic things. Whether you like say, you can do a podcast on each one of them. To be honest, I think people have. Well, no, obviously, we're just about running out of time today. So, Emma, if anyone wanted to get in touch with you, I know you did a little shameless plug earlier. I'll give you the chance to do another one. What's the best way for businesses to get in touch with you?
I suppose I'm always hanging around on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. I think my it's In-House Health 1, I think, is my profile thing. But Emma-Louise Fusari, you can find me there, or you can check out inhousehealth.co.uk, or you can drop me an email, emma@inhousehealth.co.uk, if you just want to have a chat and see how I can best support you and your business.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Emma. It was really, really interesting. I think it's a new way of looking at founder tech team wellness, isn't it? And not something we've talked about before. So I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll put all those links below for anyone listening. But no, thank you very much for your time, Emma. I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future, and you can tell us a bit more about some of the long-term effects once you've got the data for that as well.
We'll make sure we've got veggie pizzas at our next.
Veggie pizza everywhere. And...
No, just get vegetables. Never mind the pizza.
One would say. I do try with the...
I know. Thanks for having me. It's been nice.
Thank you very much, Emma.
Thank
you, Nairi.
Thank you, James.
Cheers, and thanks for everyone listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
I think that just about wraps things up here. If you have any thoughts or questions on anything we said today, get in touch, whether that be through our Twitter @RealTSF or email at hello@Thestartupfactory.tech, or feel free to drop in for a coffee and a chat. As ever, thanks for listening.